The Great Depression of the 1930s. On Thursday, the 24th of October, or Black Thursday, the New York stock market went into free fall, triggering what has now become known as the Wall Street crash. This marked the start of what is now referred to as the Great Depression of the 1930s. The Wall Street crash was only one trigger to the depression. Many investors had lost money in real estate in Florida, and many farmers and manufacturers were making too much produce, which forced prices down. This in turn triggered deflation. Because of falling prices, people were reluctant to spend, as the value of their cash in their pockets was worth more the longer they held on to it. Many European countries had borrowed money from the American market, and following the Wall Street crash, much of that money was recalled. This obviously had a dramatic impact on the global economy and caused the collapse of many European banks. Meanwhile, back in America, the president of the time, Herbert Hoover, attempted to deal with the national crisis. Unfortunately, many of the American banks had invested in fraudulent or insolvent schemes, which caused a collapse of the banking system in 1932. As a result of the loss of confidence in the banks, people held on to their money, meaning that there was less in the economy, and any government efforts to stimulate it were in vain. Unemployment became widespread and eventually topped 13 million. People were desperate for work and were unable to afford food or shelter. One famous case reported a family in New York moving into a cave in Central Park, while others built simple shelters from scrap. Areas of these shelters cropped up all over America and became known as Hoovervilles. At this time, it's estimated that around 2 million people were traveling the country looking for work, often with little success. Between the 1880s and the early 1930s, huge numbers of men, known as migrant farm workers, traveled the countryside harvesting wheat. Towards the end of this period, much of America's grain was harvested by machine, which made matters worse for this type of worker. George and Lenny represent the last of the migrant farm workers. They earned $2.50 or $3 a day, plus food and very basic accommodation. During the 1930s, as a result of the unemployment situation, agencies were set up under the New Deal to send farm workers to where they were required. In Of Mice and Men, George and Lenny worked for one of these agencies, and the conditions in which they live are apparent to anyone reading the novel. It's important to remember that their situation was far from uncommon in the America of the time.